September we met, I could tell by your smile. You hadn't been with a good girl like me in a while.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me by now, my name is Trinity Lovely, and today we're going to go back into the 12 zodiac signs. So I already have spoke about Aries and Taurus, and now I'm on Gemini, and I'm actually going through the lunar calendar, and so I started off on Aries. So let's go into Gemini. Let's talk about Gemini a little bit. Gemini is considered the third month in that Hebrew calendar, and it's ruled by the planet Mercury. And it's ruled by the planet Mercury because Hermes was the god that crossed between the living and the dead, and Hermes was that Roman god that it's associated with Mercury. And one of the things that Gemini is actually really great at is actually being able to communicate. So communication it plays a very big role with the Gemini. So as we know that the twins of the zodiac signs are Gemini, and when we talk about the twins that's associated with a Gemini, let's talk about the physical world connecting back to the spiritual world. So when we think about the Gemini, let's think about Gemini not as being two-faced as what people may think. Let's talk about the fact that they have that ability to connect from the physical realm to the spiritual realm. And let's talk about that connection between the higher self and the lower part of the self, right? So let's talk about the lower self and that higher self. And as you know, if we go back into the video, that nefesh soul and the higher self, right? So that's how we're going to look at Gemini. We're not going to look at it as it's a two-face, but we're going to actually look at it as the connection between the spiritual and the physical, and Hermes, the god who crossed between the living and the dead, right? So if we go into the living, we know that's the connection between the physical realm, and if we go into the dead, then we know that's the connection between the underworld, right? So we're gonna go into both those two connections when we think about the Gemini twin energy, right? So let's go back into the Gemini qualities. So a Gemini is known to be very intellectual, very easy for you to be able to communicate with the Gemini, because the Gemini people have great communication skills. They're great speakers. When we connect back the Gemini, it says Mercury is who they're connecting to, and it's the messenger of the gods. So in order for you to be a messenger of the gods, right, you have to basically be a very great communicator for everyone to have that ability to understand that knowledge, to receive it, right? So this is how, when we look at the Gemini, this is how we make that connection as the connection that the Gemini zodiac sign, anyone who falls under the zodiac sign of Gemini, have that great ability. Once balancing themselves and tapping into their energy of being Gemini, they have this ability, right? So when we talk about the color is associated with orange. When we talk about the gemstone, it's associated with clear crystal. When we talk about the element is air. When we talk about the sign, this is basically, Gemini is a masculine sign, right? So let's go into the dark side of the Gemini's energy, that most people actually sees these traits of the Gemini and kind of judge that sign based on these traits, right? So they may come across very overly talkative, right? Prone to exaggerate a little bit more. Some people may see them as being more deceptive because of that twin energy. Some people may see them as liars, two-faced, because of this twin energy that they have, that ability of that connection between the spiritual and the physical, where you're meeting that physical realm and that underworld realm. So people may see that as being more like a liar, from the higher self to the lower part of yourself. So it sounds like you have basically that double-edged sword, where you're just always indecisive about things that you may feel or may say, right? So they're considered emotional detached, right? So basically they have that swing mood, this double personality, right? So these are the traits that comes across as the dark side of the Gemini traits, which is considered the weak side of the Gemini traits. And I think people don't take in consideration of that twin energy when they deal with the Geminis. Kind of see it more like it's a two-facedness, right? But it's a little bit deeper than that. We have to go a little bit deeper with the Gemini personality to actually get that aspect of understanding the Gemini a little bit more deeper than how we more look at Gemini. So the Gemini is always quick to judge, quick to react, quick to change, right? Quick as their cleverness, quick as being more superficial, passing judgment. These are the weaknesses, right? So when we think about the Gemini, the planet, right, Mercury, which actually associated with the planet, it's the fastest planet in the solar system, which makes its trip around the sun as more as 88 days, and it moves 104,000 miles per hour, almost as twice as fast as the Earth. So when you think about the person making that fast judgment, I mean, my experience with people from Gemini, I never really got the two-facedness from them, and I have heard people make that remark, but I did find that a lot of them were a little bit more judgmental on decisions or people that they may meet. So if you are Gemini, just try to balance that energy to understand yourself a little bit better than understand. And just remember that you are a person to make quick judgment based on the fact of the planet, that solar connection that you have of moving very fast to make that judgment, right? So Gemini are basically speedballing all the decisions, judgments that they're making, right? So when they're gathering that information, it's very easy for them to react very quickly and make their decisions based on the energy that possessed with that Gemini. How can you make this be beneficial for you if you are a Gemini? Well, you have to understand this is a great gift that you guys have. It's a remarkable ability to grasp information, synthesize viewpoints, make decisions quickly, but just keep in mind you don't want to make decisions based on judgmental decisions at the same time. But you have the ability to actually multitask on the way how you see things and have that ability to communicate really good and that ability to make decisions really fast, but based not on judgment, right? So it won't come across too judgy, so you guys won't actually be missing the whole point of what you see, right? So you could actually benefit from having this ability, right? So as you know, when I spoke before, I said Gemini are overly talkative, right? So basically it's a little bit harder to get your word in with that Gemini, right? Because everything is answered in a very possessive, extraordinary power of persuasion, right? They hold their opinions and their ability to grasp the knowledge very quick in very high regard. So they may come across and have this opinion of the person at a very strong point where they already made up their mind very quickly. Like, I met this Gemini friend of mine, and she said, when I meet somebody, I could read you within the first time meeting you. And I was just like, really? I mean, like, how could you read me so quickly? We tend to always kind of hold back ourselves sometime and not share everything at once. So, as if you have that Gemini ability, yes, you do have that gift to actually gather all the information, but it should be that you're giving us, the other signs, a chance, right? In making that decision very quickly and basing out on your judgment of who we are, okay? Gemini, because of that ability for them to think very fast, they're constantly contradicting themselves, right? Because they're not taking time to actually really think about the information that they are gathering. They are making quick judgments really, really quickly, because when you think about Mercury, how fast it's moving, and that energy that possessed with that sign, with the energy of the people within that sign, they're always quickly thinking about making decisions very quickly, abrupt, right? And they're not taking time to get to really analyze that situation. So by the time they find out, they're constantly contradicting things, right? So it's not that, I do want to keep in mind and keep specifying this, it's not that they're two-faced. It's the energy of the sign that actually is with that person, is that archetype, right? That constantly plays with the role of the way how each person may think. So as a Gemini, we got to keep in mind that the Gemini has great attributes and great extraordinary communication skills. However, it's the relationships that we have throughout time with family and friends and the people that we meet may sometimes see the attributes and see it as a darker side to the Gemini, and not see the greatness in the Gemini based on how the Gemini contradicts. But when you're a Gemini and you're basically creative, you're friendly, you have a multi-talent, you're intelligent, right? You have to also remember that you could also come off a little bit snappish, gossipy, clinic, a little bit cynical, dealing with the Gemini, because we don't understand these two energies that possess with the Gemini. So we don't really see why the Gemini is contradicting himself. But it's the Gemini, one of the ways that the Gemini can actually benefit from this great attribute, with all these skills, without seeing it in a darker view, is learning to understand that you guys have great skills at communication. You guys have the ability to adapt, and you have the ability to actually learn the information very quickly, kind of like catch things a bit faster than everyone. But at the same time, in order for you to actually use the gift that the Gemini has, you have to be able to analyze each information that you got, right? So you got to analyze the data that you're getting. And if you can analyze the data that you're getting, well, then you will be considered one of a sign that is very actually great to have as a friend, right? Because you're basically going to have that understanding what's taking place. You're going to see beyond certain tasks, right? Anyone who have you as a friend is going to see that you are a great opportunity to be around, right? Because you'll be able to gather that information very quickly than other people, because you have that ability, you have that gift. So I do want to specify again, so when we learn about the Gemini, let's learn about the Gemini in a different aspect of not being the two-faced, because we know that they have twin energies. But let's also remember the Roman god Hermes, which he had that ability to cross between the living and the dead. And when we think about that higher self and that nephesh, let's keep that in mind, that a Gemini also have that ability to actually connect to both energies, right? So let's not look at them as just they're the two-faced sign out of the 12 zodiacs. Let's give them that a better understanding of the signs, so we can have a better understanding with dealing with anyone who's a Gemini, and any Gemini that doesn't know themselves. I really hope that you learn a little bit more by learning your natal chart, digging more into the zodiac sign, and learning a little bit more about yourself. Okay?